Hello and welcome to this week's episode of They've Been Doing It All Day, Sir. I'm Ben.
And I'm Chris.
It was the week of the comeback with some great auditions for Origin. Let's get stuck in.
How things going, mate?
Not too bad. We're wearing a few different jerseys this week.
We are. You're wearing the native Australian jersey.
I feel like I've drawn the short straw, but I suppose I'm somewhat more Australian than you are in the fact that I have three Australian.
Wow. Wow.
No, actually, I saved myself on that. I've got two Australian children because only two of the three were born in Australia. One of them was born in the UK.
There we go.
Yeah, I saved myself there massively. But like I mentioned, some huge comebacks this weekend, and we got a lot to get through. So want to cover this one quickly. What's one of the biggest comebacks that you've seen in sport or for Birmingham or anyone that you can think of?
There's a couple of ones that I always talk about. First one is the Birmingham City versus West Ham United in the Carling Cup semi-final. 3-1 down on aggregate. Ended up winning 4-3 in extra time. Craig Garner, screamer into the bottom corner. And the other one always sticks out is Newcastle versus Arsenal. Arsenal 4-0 up at half-time. Ended up drawing 4-4. Chet Teote scored an absolute screamer.
Is that the one where he volleys it from about 35 yards out, bottom corner?
Yeah, incredible goal. But those are the two that really jump out for myself. Have you got anything on the same lines?
I've got one. I've got one huge one, and it links to some of the Chelsea tops that are around, and that's Chelsea's comeback in the Champions League final against Bayern Munich. Hostile environment, away at the Allianz, 1-0 down, huge underdogs throughout the whole tournament. And then Didier Drogba pops up in the 88th minute to just nod a header in from Frank Lampard's corner, takes it to extra time, and then to win on penalties with Didier Drogba scoring his last penalty ever for Chelsea, although he then comes back and plays Chelsea again. But moving on to the NRL, though, we've got some huge comebacks this week and some huge performances from individuals.
Massively.
Who are you going to go with your performance of the round this week?
My performance of the round is Latrell Mitchell. Watching him against that Broncos team, he was doing so much throughout the game that I think went under the radar as well. He's very much highlighted in that second half, but even in the first half, he was putting in changes. Two standout points in the first half was the one-on-one tackle to Payne Haas, who normally trucks fullbacks, but varied to the side of Mitchell, and Mitchell was able to take the tackle, and he ended up getting a one-on-one strip as well when the Broncos were bringing up some momentum. But then my little mention alongside that has got to be Blaise Talangi. Four assists for a very young half who's come into this very well-oiled previous year's Panthers team. And very much wore that 6 jersey and wore it well.
He's had a bit of a rough start to the season as well, with people not getting selected for a while, and then people questioning whether he's got it too early, maybe to come into this Panthers team. But he definitely put in a performance.
He earned his dollars.
He certainly did. I'm going to go with Stephen Crichton. Now, I know I'm just going to caveat that with a lot of people that be like, oh, what about Ryan Pappenhausen? Yes, he scored a shed load of points, equaled the record of the most points scored in a single game, I believe, or was certainly up there in the table. But his was not as situational as kind of my pick for Crichton and yours is for Latrell, in the fact that both of these teams were behind at half time, and then Stephen Crichton just was unreal in that second half. I don't know whether they noticed a weakness in the Raiders line and just decided for him to start opening up the legs and just run at gaps, run at space. But the way he was moving the ball around one-handed, swimming it over people, palming people off on the way, and then offloading to Carraz for tries, I think he was just unreal. And then he was supported by Kickout's work on the other side as well. So they just, the dogs turned up in the second half. And we'll get onto that one in a bit. But flop of the round, we've gone for a joint flop of the round. So I'll let you talk about your reasons.
It's the Tigers. When you concede 64 points and you don't score any, you can't really overlook that.
Nah.
We did talk about the Storm being flat track bullies, but even still, shipping 64 points, and we are very much haters of teams that don't score in league. I think this could be like the third or fourth team this season, and it's not only shipping 64, but then not scoring yourselves in a time where you'd expect around 70, 80 minutes things to have tied a couple of tries, especially with the players that the Tigers have on that team. So that's why I've gone for the Tigers.
They've got one of the best finishes in the game in Taruva on the wing, creative in the middle with Luai, Galvin, power through the middle with Terrell May, who was probably one of their standout performers. I don't know whether you can have a standout performer when you get battered 64-0, but for what they've got, the hype that has been created around them and the weapons that they've brought in, I just think it's embarrassing to get your pants pulled down. 64-0 away from home, biggest loss this season. I believe they had one last year as well against the Cowboys, but they then reversed that and beat the Cowboys. Very similar at Leichhardt Oval. But big flop of the round there. Can't really think of anyone else. Talking of flops, though, my tips weren't exactly great. I got 50% again.
50%. You can't argue with that, especially with the year that everyone's having as well. So you can't argue with that.
Yeah.
Especially with you look at the Broncos, Rabbitohs. Rabbitohs coming off the loss of to the Knights.
Not knowing what Panthers are going to turn up.
You're never knowing what Panthers are going to turn up. It was a horrible round to tip as well. So 4 out of 8, I'd be happy with that.
And you took the week with the one differential that we picked. I picked the Knights. Sorry, you picked the Titans. And the Titans. Talking of comebacks, the Titans came back in that one. But let's kick off with the review of the round. We're going to start with the Bulldogs, 33, defeating the Raiders, 20. What a comeback!
It was very. I think you can say this for pretty much every game. Where the comeback was on. It was a game of two halves. I haven't seen this year yet a game that has two halves so different from each other.
20-0 down at half time.
Separated from each other as well with the same two teams. Don't get me wrong, the Raiders looked incredible in that first half. The constant barrage against the Dogs, and the Dogs just didn't have any answers. They looked at 6 and 7s. They really struggled with everything. Fogarty, Strange, Starling were all creating such patterns within the play. The Dogs just had no answers.
Yeah, and with that comeback in the second half, do you think that reinforces? People said they were Premiership contenders beforehand, but do you think it highlights the fact that they can win it all, or do you reckon that first half highlights potentially some vulnerability and weakness? What's your takeaway from that?
I got it written down here. That's a Premiership winning second half. It's all well and good doing well when you've got the momentum and you're scoring the tries, you're winning games. It's how you dig deep when things aren't going your way. You could question them when they played the Broncos the other week. They just lost their heads and it was in a real struggle. This game could have easily gone that way.
Yeah,
I think they were probably a sin bin away from that.
Same
happening.
Result, yeah.
But it was incredible to watch that second half and seeing the individual performances that came off it as well. It was immense.
Yeah, like I mentioned earlier, Crichton just opened them up on that right-hand side. And as soon as they saw that had impact once, they just went straight to it. In 17 minutes, they were from 20 points down to then winning the game, I think it was. So fair play to them. But what do you think of the shouts of Stephen Crichton being Origin captain?
He's my Origin captain. Like he would be my captain straight away. I think we discussed this last week or in previous weeks about him being Origin captain. His leadership skills are incredible. As we discussed last week, him being able to show his defence and attack these last couple of weeks, he's an all-round player. But then flipping on that, if it's not going to be Crichton, who do you think would take the armband?
I reckon Isaiah Yao will get it just through experience. We're going to cover our Origin picks later, and maybe we'll talk a little bit about the captaincy debate then. But just to touch on the Raiders, they've lost Matty Nicholson, one of the guys that we absolutely love on here. He's broken his leg, lower leg, near enough ankle. I think he's out for 8 to 10 weeks, which isn't good. But what happened to him in the second half?
I think it was just pure pace and the speed that the Dogs were playing the game at. It was relentless in the fact that it was just set after sort of tackle after tackle after tackle, and every pickup, every person who went into dummy half was stepping forward before passing, and it just separated the Raiders line. Don't get me wrong, Strange put in an incredible try-saving tackle against Tracy, where he was able to flip him round and then hold him up.
Yeah.
Like, that's that was an incredible moment in the game.
All for nothing, because
Absolutely
I think two tackles later they scored. So
if the Raiders went on to win that game, that would probably
have been down to that. Yeah,
that could have been highlight of the year.
Yeah,
that tackle. But because it's ended up being in a loss, it's going to go under the radar with everything.
I think it was just the overwhelming pressure as well. The Dogs found something that they could exploit, and whether it is the gaps in the line from the centres, because Kickow was he was line breaking. You had Crichton one side, Carraz was dancing around people. It just seemed that things clicked, and I don't know whether it's a bit of pressure, expectation from the Raiders, the fact that they'd blown out to a 20-point lead, and then all of a sudden within, 8-9 second half minutes, they were only up 2 points.
Yep.
And pressure burst can burst a steel pipe. Imagine what it can do to the Canberra Raiders. But on to the next game, which was another cracking comeback, and one man stole the limelight. We got the Rabbitohs 22 defeating the Broncos 14. Latrell to the rescue in the wet. He is a big-time player.
He is.
Big-time players make big-time plays, and my word was the 50, claims it's 50 metres, 47-metre field goal to win it. Unreal.
That thing travelled 55 metres. Like it was. I don't think you'll see a better connection.
Nah, hit it right out the middle, and he knew as soon as he kicked it, he turned around and walked away, and was just
That's incredible. That must be such a great feeling. I stood behind that. Like whenever I've tried to drop kick a ball, I've probably got no further than 10 metres. Like after a bit of repetition, I've been all right.
Yeah.
But I couldn't even dream of hitting one like that and then just seeing it float over and then being able to walk off, especially with the scenario he did it in as well.
Yeah, and you mentioned it earlier. It wasn't just that. He put in some great plays earlier on, and I just think it highlights why he's a perfect fit for the Origin stage, because when people need him, he steps up. And a couple of years ago when he was playing at centre, just trucking people and running people over, just had people second guessing. He's got to be a dead cert for the team sheet, right?
Definitely. I think that performance has put him there. Just sort of the point, he's try-saver on Mariner as well. Like Mariner's not an easy boy to catch, and to be able to show him the sideline and make the tackle he did.
Form tackle.
And then I think it was a few moments, like may have been a little bit later, I can't remember the timings of it, but then to hit the 2-point field goal, that's an 8-point shift essentially that he's done that on his own there. And one point I did notice, and we discussed about it on Sunday, is what his attitude was like at halftime.
Yeah.
So at halftime, KO had the camera on the Rabbitohs huddle, and he was going around everyone, jeering them up, like sort of, come on boys, we're still in this. And to be fair, they were. The Broncos couldn't get away. So I don't know whether you saw it differently or not.
No, I agree. Like 14-0 at halftime, I think was underwhelming for kind of what the Broncos can do. So fair play to the Rabbitohs for keeping them at bay and putting in a performance to keep it close at halftime, because it certainly could have got away from them. But it all came down to who scored first in the second half, and the Rabbitohs came out, got that score within 5-10 minutes of the start of the second half, and you're like, right, this isn't over, because we know the Broncos are shaky. You never know which Broncos are going to show up, and I love Selwyn Cobber off the back fence. Like he is. There was a few times where he made a business decision just to run it straight, run it to someone. He targeted Jai Gray when he was on. I think he was like, do you know what? I'm just going to run straight at you, and tried to run him over. But fair play to him, he stopped him. But you just don't know which Broncos players are going to turn up. Payne Haas had a good showing again, but he was kept quiet for his standards.
Yeah. Made a shocking 150 metres.
Yeah.
It's mental.
When he averages 170 metres or whatever it is, that is kind of shocking. But you just don't know week on week who's going to turn up. Well, they're 5-5 now, the Broncos, I believe. They're close to that, 4-5, 5-4, 5-5, one of them. But I wouldn't like to get them in the playoffs, in the final, should they get there. But onto teams as well that you wouldn't want to get in the playoffs or the finals. Cowboys 30, Panthers 30. I believe Penrith were lucky to get away with a point in this.
Yeah, massively. Especially when it went into Golden Point. There was, I think the Cowboys had about 3 or 4 genuine attempts to be able to see the game see the game off. And I was watching it back. It'd be really interesting to see where they were sort of in offside line, because there was a few times.
I think Cleary's called for something in the fact that it was questionable whether one of them, whoever it was offside.
Yeah, it's like the pace they get in there, like 10 metres. By the time the ball's rolled out, and then the pass is going back even further. So there's a 15-metre gap. Like they must have been setting off early at some point.
I said it on Sunday at the Man U game. Like, there's no way that players can react as quick as they do to when exactly the foot touches the ball to then make up that distance and be where they are in the time they are. So there's got to be some hoodoo voodoo going on to get them out there early. But they were genuine chances. And I think last year, if Valentine Holmes is there, does that make a difference? Does he slot them? Do the Cowboys walk away with the win?
Yeah, massively. You can argue if he was there whether it would have gone to sort of 30-30, whether there would have been a bit more prominent in attack. But the real frustrating with the Panthers at the moment is they're starting to click into this Panthers attacking wise that we've known for the last 4 or 5 seasons. Their issues now is their defence, and by God, their defence is all over the place at times.
Yeah.
The gaps, the tackling element of it as well. It's just not a Panthers team that you know when it comes to defensive work.
Well, it helps when their physios spraying water on the ball and trying to get. What's your thoughts on that? Like both of them were doing it apparently.
Yeah, unless it's not water, unless it's something. But I can't think of anything else that it would make. Wasn't it raining anyway? Or the weather. It's
humid up there. Yeah, like the ball's going to be slippery anyway.
Yeah, and spraying water on it, it's like it's the dark arts of the game. It's a bit. Don't get me wrong, it's pathetic because by the time because the ball's got to travel 50 odd meters to get down the other end. Probably by the time it's gone down there,
it's fairly dry.
It's probably dried off. And I don't know how much of an advantage you're actually going to really gain from it. But
the ref picked it up when the Cowboys done it, and he changed the ball. So there obviously is a law around ball tampering. But
100%. But why is a trainer allowed to walk with the ball anyway? Like that's
very true.
That's another thing. But yeah, that was quite funny in that aspect. But we didn't even touch on it in the previous game about Mitchell's last minute try. So there was a couple of there was a couple of controversial moments, I suppose, over the weekend.
What's your thoughts on that? I'm blowing up. I'm not calling Latrell's one. It's like a bit. He'd taken a knee. He'd conceded the game and then dived through.
Wrap him then.
True.
I'm sorry, but you see it all the time within the games. Like last tackle, someone will drop to the knee, someone will still go over and wrap them.
Yeah. Next time it happens, he's going to get an absolute shot on him,
and so he should. That. But unfortunately, that's the thing you open yourself up to. If you are going to do that, people are going to absolutely wallop you, and he should accept it. In the post, if that does happen in the post-match interview, you should go, yeah, I tricked the Broncos, got cleared out this week, absolutely fine. But I'm not too fussed about it. Broncos know better. They should play between the two whistles. You
never know. It could be a key deciding fact coming down to points differential at the end of the season. Imagine if they sneak in by 5 points and it's him sneaking over. Another close one though. Warriors 15 defeating the Dragons 14. Another very, very close loss for the Dragons this year. Yep. What do you think is holding? Like, what is causing them to mess up so much when they need extra points? Because they did it against the Eels when Lomax slotted it over for the Eels. They messed it up then by, I think it was Lockie Ilias that might have kicked it out on the full. There's this. They couldn't get close enough. They were messing around with a ruck. They were passing it too many times. What do they need to do? We've discussed on the sort of the senior players in sort of key positions and that side of things. It could well be a case of they don't have the key position, they don't have the player in the halves to be able to control that. They've got Val Holmes at centre, who fantastic player. They've got Gutherson at fullback, brilliant player. Players you want in attack, but when you want someone orchestrating the attack, you need that from your halves and sort of not hiding away, but being at the centre and fullback. They're just so inconsistent with what they do as well. And there's moments where they are incredible in attack and they're doing so well, but then you go back and then they've just seen things that you
I don't know what they're seeing. So I personally think it's just not having the experience in the halves could be
to
an
see
issue.
how to manage a game.
Don't know whether you're seeing it a little differently or not.
Well, it's interesting because we talk about people in the halves that are able to do that, and Luke Metcalf on the other side, he stepped up, slotted the extra point to. I think they did it quite early, didn't they? There was like 7 minutes to go or something.
Fair bit of time left.
Fair bit of time. So fair play to manage that and go, do you know what? I don't think we're going to get down. Let's just put one over and put us in front. Scoreboard pressure. But he's been phenomenal the last couple of weeks. We spoke about him last week. He scored in this, got the decisive points, but they've definitely found Sean Johnson's replacement. Yeah,
massively, and I think that's such a big thing for them, considering he had an absolute shocker week one in Vegas, and everyone was on his back and whatnot. But he's been, as you say, incredible over the last two, three, maybe even longer. He pulls that game together. As you said, the game management is brilliant for someone so sort of young within the position and within the team. And you look at it as well, like with Warriors, they're winning these close games, and they're underscoring as well. They're not scoring many points, but they're winning the game. So I think they're third or fourth, within sort of least points scored.
There was a stat I saw earlier that said they're either third or fourth on the all-time ladder of the team with the lowest points differential at this point of the season to be in the top four. Yeah. The lowest was the West Tigers. They had like a -2 points difference in the early 2000s. But the Warriors being on, what is it, +1?
One.
Yeah.
They're second on a +1 difference.
Yeah, it goes to show that when they win the games, they either win them well or win them tight. And when they lose tight ones. So,
yeah.
Look, we've said it before. Defense wins games. It doesn't matter how many points are on the board from the opposition. As long as you score more than them, that's all that matters, getting the 2 points on the board. And a team that did score more points than the opposition, which they haven't done in recent weeks, the Gold Coast Titans defeating the Newcastle Knights 24-20. For the first, 15, 20 minutes of this game, I thought, here we go. I've tipped the Knights here. Yeah, they're on. They are on.
Yeah, but how quickly that can turn.
It did.
One thing I picked up on this as well is how unhappy Hasler looked.
At the end.
Just in general throughout the game.
I think it was more relief maybe at the end. You know where he's staring deadpan into the camera? I reckon it's a relief of, I might have just saved my job for another few weeks then.
It was just really weird watching because you then flip onto the sort of the Storm game where Craig Bellamy was fuming the whole way through.
Not a smile on his face.
Not a smile, like absolutely going mental the whole, and your team's 64-0 up. And this one, like they've had their issues last week and the last few weeks, and you pull off an incredible comeback. I think it's their. Isn't it their history? Biggest comeback in NRL history, and he's just sat there like, oh. So that's something I picked up on, which I thought was quite. I don't know. Is it telling a little bit of a story of as we said that the dressing room may not be swinging in his favour at the moment?
Pressure from above. I think there's a few media articles that have been flying around recently around if he doesn't secure top 8, he's gone at the end of the year. So there must have been a point in that game where he's like, right, I think I've just sold my house down on the Northern Beaches. I thought I was here long term. Now I've got to rethink where I'm going to be living in the next few months because I'm about to get the old tin tack. But I think he was relieved at the end. But one thing this defeat does is piles the pressure on for Adam O'Brien. Newcastle sitting bottom of the ladder. What have they won? 2 games, lost 7.
Yeah.
But like you mentioned earlier about the Warriors, although the Knights aren't scoring that many points, defensively, they're not conceding that many points either. So it's a bit of a tale of two. I think we touched on it last week when we spoke about where the Knights and the Warriors sat on the table, 2 complete opposite ends, but were very similar in kind of points scored, points conceded. But one thing from this, Greg Marju has done his knee in, I believe. Don't know how long he's out for, but perfect timing to get Dom Young in.
Well, that's all stalled, isn't it? Apparently, I was reading earlier, they'd turned around and said to the Roosters, you can still pay his contract for a year and we'll have him. Yeah. And the Roosters was like, well, no, that's not why we're getting rid of him. Like, you need to get rid of him. And I think they should be doing everything they can to try and get him in. I don't know whether it could be a case that Dom Young has to take a pay cut for just the rest of the year.
I reckon he will.
To then be able to re-sign next year. But they are screaming out for someone in that side of things. And I think it'd be interesting the versatility of him as well, because I remember reading on the Manly pages the weekend, Manly should go for him and play him second row. And
he's a big boy.
He's a big unit. Does he have the attributes to be able to play second? One of the big things that has been his issues we discussed is his defensive work.
Yeah.
You are a little bit hidden within that second row element. If you can make the hits against your opposite second row,
just hold him up. That's all you need to do.
It's a lot better than being on your own and making a decision whether I'm going to cut him, whether I'm going to stick and go out. But I don't I can't see that being his position personally, but I just thought it'd be quite an interesting thing to highlight, I suppose.
We'll see how it goes, because I saw Trent Robertson come out today and saying we are not getting rid of Dom Young for the way the Knights are saying it's going to happen, and don't promise him things before things have actually materialised. But we'll keep an eye on that one. On to the Storm, the Melbourne Storm. Back down to earth with a crash, I believe, for the Tigers. 64-0. We were preparing to go and watch Manly at this point. We were having a few schooners, and the scoreboard was just ticking over. Every time we refreshed the page, it was 32, 39, 40, 50, and it was just relentless. How did the Tigers bounce back from a 64-0 battering?
That's going to be a big indicator of their bottle.
Yeah,
is what they can do internally to shift that. This is either going to motivate them or going to put them on the beach for the next couple of weeks, which is not what you want to do. Especially
I was going to say Jerome Luai's dad coming out and tweeting on Insta after saying activate the release clause, or release clause activated. Since corrected it and saying that his wife has banned him from using social media now. But
talking about us having a couple of schooners, I reckon he'd had a few when he posted that.
Certainly, but like you say, tested the metal, but adding stuff to it like outside noise from inside. How does that impact them?
It's like that. You'd think they've had enough with everything that came on with Galvin, and now this with the dad. But I suppose it's around the halves. It's not everyone within the team that are causing a bit of bother. It just seems to be a bit of noise from that sense. But Ryan Pappenhausen,
can't argue. He's put himself within a chance of playing Origin. I don't believe for game one. I believe there's two other main contenders out there that stand out above him. But if he continues putting in performances like this, game 2 or 3, should there be an injury, he's certainly put himself on the list for that. But one interesting thing that I saw earlier, should there be a mercy rule in the NRL?
No.
If you're 50 points down, do you reckon there should be a clock running or something?
No, mercy rules are for amateur sports and because everyone's going to go to work on Monday morning. Like, nah. You as professional athletes, you should be psychologically be able to cope with this.
Yep.
And go with it, roll with it. And B, it's professional sports, so this is a once in a blue moon occurrence. It's not like it's happening.
They hope.
Yeah. God, I've just absolutely killed the Tigers there. But it doesn't happen every week. There's not a blowout like this
week in, week out
in the NRL. So I think that is a silly comment. Whoever made that. But I suppose the Storm just show what they can do when against a defence that don't want to defend.
Yeah. So right now, after that weekend, Storm against the Dogs of the second half, against the Raiders, who wins? It's
Dogs.
a tough one.
Dogs. I'm going Dogs. Because I think the Storm may not be able to keep up defensively when the Dogs switch to the way they did. And also more of a fan of Stephen Crichton than I am Cam Munster, so I don't really not a massive fan of the Storm. Like it's one of those, but that is a tough one, and it depends the situation as well. I think the way the Storm played, don't get me wrong, I reckon they would have put points on any team, but if there was a team within the comp to be able to do it back, I think it
could be the Dogs. It'd be an interesting one.
What's your thoughts around it though?
I reckon the Dogs defensively would be able to stop what the Storm had. I don't think they'd let it get to that point. I believe they got the weapons to nullify some of their attacking plays and where they find themselves, and then to flip that, they've got the attacking performance to shut them down and create time off the ball with that. So I believe the Dogs, out of those two performances, was better, but it was only for 40 minutes, whereas the Storm stuck it on them for the whole 80,
which
is a big factor that you got to consider. So it'll be great to see them play off in the final somewhere. Let's hope it is the grand final if they're the two form teams at the time. But there's a few people and a few other teams that will have a say in that. Let's move on to we've got 2 more games to go. The Dolphins 20 defeat the Eels 16. I believe Herbie Farnworth, he scored in 4 consecutive games. He is now proving kind of why he can be one of the best centres in the game.
Massive, and it wasn't too long ago you were calling him out
for not performing too well.
He's had a great game.
The try to seal it as well, broke through 2 arm tackles, sidestepped. Was it? I don't think it was the hammer at the back. It might have been, but he walked, then jogged around and put it under, and he's just week on week getting better and better.
Yeah, incredible. And it's great to see what the league can do. Like, very happy he's English. We're going to be wearing that white against the gold in the Ashes series.
AJ Brimson for the old Titans is deferred. So we got another NRL player representing England in the Ashes as well, which is good.
There we go. But yeah, it was one of those games where, and this is where my thought process was going, is when I said, I messaged you about possibly the Knights being the worst team in the comp. The other teams around them, so you've got the Bunnies who have been absolutely injury riddled.
Oh, have they?
But they're always there or thereabouts. Like they're never too far away. The Eels, again, injuries in key attacking positions. Like, they haven't really had a full strength team yet. I think this could be their first weekend.
Yeah, where Lomax is back.
Lomax is back. They've got Moses. They've got Adokar. They've got some attacking weapons. And again, against the Dolphins team that can turn it on. We've seen that they did it against the Storm. They're not too far away.
Yeah.
And that's what my thought process of those teams around the Knights is, why that's my thought process for it. Because this game could have easily gone to the Eels as it did to the Dolphins. It
certainly could have. And one of the people that was the massive difference for the Dolphins, though, was Katoa. Like, he shows things from such a young age. The first try that they scored, when he runs it into the line, he runs it so deep into the line, but fakes it one way and then turns around and passes it the other way, leaving, I think it was Moses and the winger just absolutely on toast, not expecting it, flat-footed, Farnworth, quick offload. And I can't even remember who it was. Maybe it was Avarillo that went over in the corner, but it was, or Bostock, I think. But it was just great play from him. He's turning into a future star, I believe. He's only young. He's going to sign or has signed or might be signing or they want to lock him up. One of those options. We'll get there soon, but they're going to want to keep him for a long time because he's going to be a future star of the game for sure.
And this is the interesting thing, is that he's born in New Zealand, but then played his his junior out in Penrith. So would that mean he's eligible to play Origin?
Isn't it like 13 or 14 you've got to do that, I believe? Or so there's some age that you've got to have played rep football from, but we can look into that and find out. If anyone knows, please put it down in the comments below as to what your Origin determination is, because we haven't got a clue. But good game, I thought. The Dolphins. Also a great try saving tackle by the hammer at the end, where, like you say, Eels could have broke away with it. Adokar was gassing down the sideline, and it was just fortunate enough that there was a man with. In fact, isn't that a flashback to they played out in? They played one of the rounds out in somewhere.
Yeah, when it was
and they were running. They were running down the sideline, and he caught him up. It was kind of a bit of payback for that, I guess.
Fox versus the
hammer.
Yeah, I remember that now.
On to the final game of the round. It was the final game on the Sunday,
was there another game?
Yeah, was there another game? Can we skip over this one? But we've put it last because we also thought it was the most boring game of the round as well.
Yeah.
Not just the fact that Manly lost, but there was nothing much going for this game. We were sat in the stands. The Sharks raced out to, well, they didn't race out again. They were 14-0 up at half-time. The third time Manly haven't scored a point at home in the first half, which is worrying. Manly bring it back to 14-0, and then horrendous mistake by Garrick. Gives it to Braden Trindle. They go over, then go over again. One of my biggest things from this game, though, wouldn't mind hearing your thoughts on it. As DCE checked out, is he gone? Is he at the Roosters?
The amazing thing was that this is two different DCEs. Against Penrith, he was everywhere. He was orchestrating the game, and this week it was the exact same performance he put in against the Dragons.
His kicking was terrible. We were sitting in the stands, and every kick was no height on it, flat, no distance,
straight to a person,
not really causing them. And then their fullback, I've forgotten his name's Kennedy just has loads of room to run it back, making meters. Next thing you know, they're making 50 meters down the field easily.
Yeah.
And the mistakes that are being made, and like we're going to talk about Origin in a minute, but for me, Olakwatu has got to cut mistakes out of his game.
Yeah, I don't know where this is all creeped in from.
He offloaded to one of the Sharks players.
Yeah.
Just hold on to the ball, man. Don't offload it. And yeah.
I don't know whether he's trying to do too much in that essence. And the Garrick try, it's a really difficult one because that's an anomaly, man. That is just shit luck in that sense that he's rolling and the ball pops out. Granted, you can go, why didn't he just knock it out of the back? He was never getting out of the in-goal area. But it's just so unlucky from that side of things. And the tackle, the try for Fanua Blake as well, like the Manly line should have just escorted him through. Like,
I'm pretty sure didn't Cherry Evans make a business decision on that one potentially?
I don't blame him, to be honest. Like, if I saw Fanua Blake, you know what I mean? It's
but it had to be him as well, the ex-Manly guy, to fly over and score.
And there was just, again, Kohler was incredible. Like
standout.
Where this has come from, he's gone under the radar in performances wise, and then the last couple of weeks he's just shone above the rest. I think it's because of how poor everyone else is playing.
5 tackles.
Yeah, incredible.
Yeah,
incredible. And we were saying in the pub after the game, it seems that they have a blueprint for one game, it works, and they just then copy and paste it for the next team. You saw that early in the first half when Garrick tried to. There was the same move they did against the Panthers for the first try, and Garrick came in on that crash and just didn't collect ball and just got absolutely nailed.
Yeah. And they kicked off after that, didn't he? Got a bit of argy-bargy after that one to then make a mistake later on and give them a try. But anyway.
But there was no room to do that.
No.
Like, again, I never understand why the halves or whoever's passing the ball isn't reading what's happening.
It's like against the Dragons when it was given to Ben.
Yeah.
And he drops it straight.
Nothing there, and there was just no attacking attempt. Like Brooks had a bit of a quiet game for him attacking wise, still incredible in defence.
Fair play to the guy. Puts his body on the line.
All the time. I don't know why it's then we've had all these weeks of DCE not kicking to then DCE kicking and Brooks is doing nothing now. He's now doing his kickoffs looked absolutely shocking.
The first one he did was terrible.
So I don't know what's going on. Turbo had a quiet game.
He's not 100%. He can't get selected for Origin. There's no way the guy can get selected for Origin.
And this is what we'll talk about in a minute. But we shot ourselves in the foot with having Falalo on the bench and not having an additional forward. So Jake Travojevic, who I think we've now all come to the conclusion is can't play more than 50, 60 minutes, had to play 72 minutes. Tavanga and Simpkin just didn't look like their combination they did against the Panthers. And I was watching this game and I couldn't understand what the game plan was.
No. There was no, like that Kohler try against Penrith where he's looped in from the other side, coming, run underline, even Olakwatu going up and jumping for balls. To be fair, I thought Olakwatu had been knocked clean out later in the game.
Yeah, that was...
When he collided heads.
Big.
How he was allowed to stay back on the field, I do not know, but...
We were fuming.
Yeah, it was terrible. But we looked at the stats after this game and they were fairly even. And it was definitely like, I'm not taking anything away from the Sharks. They came up to Brookie Oval, got the job done. They were methodical in what they did. They ran it through the middle.
Same as they did in Perth.
So exactly the same as what they did. They took their opportunities. They capitalised on mistakes. But it was definitely more of a case of Manly being poor than it was a Sharks dominating win.
Massively. And the one that sticks out the most is tackle breaks. Sharks had 30, Manly had 17.
Exactly.
I reckon we could have a good old rant for a good while about this. And some of it is the players, but then, as we said, something's got to happen with the coaching. Like, for them to come out at post-game interview against the Panthers and say that move was created at half-time, but then had pretty much 2 weeks off and couldn't create anything more spectacular to try and break down the Sharks.
Yeah, terrible.
So
we'll leave it there, though. Poor for Manly. Where we see us going in the future, I don't know. Worried about making the top 8, but we shall see. On to round 11. We're going to continue with the same tips and best bets for round 11. Just want to say that I got the only bet of the week, which was a pretty comfortable one. It was Storm to reach 10 points first and over 9.5 tries in the game. I will say I didn't expect Melbourne to score all 9.5 plus. I thought the Tigers might chip in. But remember, that was only paying $2.50, so it's almost a guarantee. And moving on to this week's fixtures, on Friday, we've got the $1.69 Newcastle Knights against the $2.17 Parramatta Eels. This tight one. Lomax is back for the Eels, though, which I think will be a big inclusion. Where are you going with this one?
So after what I've just said about the Knights and the Eels, I think there's only one way I can really go with this tip and back with what I'm saying. And I will be back in the Parramatta Eels. I'm excited to see what the combination of Lomax, Adokar and Moses can do. And yeah, I can't really not pick the Eels on this one.
Yeah, Bailey Simonson is out. I think he fractured his foot maybe or something like that for the Eels, but having Lomax back, Marju and Leo Thompson out for the Knights. I'm going to go with you on this one. I'm going to back the $2.31 Parramatta Eels to get this one done. What's your best bet for this one? Where's your money going to go?
As I am a fan of the try scorers, I've gone Adokar, try, Lomax 1 try, and then Fletcher Sharp 1 try.
Yeah, I like that. What's that paying?
$10.
$10?
Yeah.
That's a nice little return on that one. Second game on the Friday, we got the top of the table Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs at $1.37 against the $3.11 Sydney Roosters. What are you saying?
Dogs. Where's it been played at the core? Friday night. I reckon the Belmore Barmy Army will. I nearly said Belmarsh. Then that's a prison.
It's a prison.
It's a prison in London.
Yeah.
I think the Belmore Barmy Army will be out in force. Don't get me wrong. The Roosters at times do have a very exciting attack, but I think they will struggle defensively if the Bulldogs decide to skip through the gears. Like they did, and Crichton's on an absolute high, so I'm going to go for the Dogs on this one.
Yeah, I'm going to join you on that with the Dogs. I think they got too much for the Roosters. They're only missing the weak-gutted dog that is Jamin Salmon. Scored a great try the weekend and obviously gave it to the camera. Interesting to see that Lindsay Collins is back. He's been named in the reserves for the Roosters. Dom Young has also been named as well. I'm just trying to see where he's lining up. He definitely can't be in the starting. No, he's not. He's not in the starting lineup. But I think the Dogs have got enough at home. Like you say, the Belmore Barmy Army are going to be out on the Friday night. I believe they get this one done. I potentially think it could be quite comfortable. But my best bet for this one, I'm going to go Roosters to score first because I saw a stat, and I haven't fact-checked this, but Sportsbet told me that Roosters have scored first in 100% of their games this season. So I'm going to go Roosters to score first, but the Dogs to win.
Nice.
$3.75 that one's paying.
Good bit of stat look.
Yeah,
start looking there.
Good bit of research, I thought. Whether it's true or not, which you hope Sportsbet's telling you that it is true. You hope it is.
They wouldn't lie to you, would they?
No, but we have the next up on the Saturday, the 3 p.m. kickoff. We have the Dolphins paying $2 against the New Zealand Warriors at $1.84. Is it up the wars or not?
I'm wars upping. Fisher Harris is back this week, which is a huge addition. Like, don't get me wrong, Mitch Barnett has been incredible this season at prop, but then to have his partner in crime back in Fisher Harris against the Dolphins team, who are on a bit of a slump, and again, DWZ, he's just waiting to unleash something, isn't he? So I'm going up the wires on this one. I'm going Warriors.
I'm on the fence with this one. I'm real on the fence with this one. The Warriors don't travel well, although that might just be a stereotype because they're currently sitting second in the table, so they must be doing something right.
Yep.
Metcalf is on absolute fire. Dolphins do look good, but I'm going to have to up the wars. I'm going to have to go with the Warriors for this one. think Fisher Harris is a big inclusion. Let's hope the injury that he had, he's not not getting any niggles from it, and he's running at full pace, full steam ahead. What's your bet? Where you going?
Just a low one. I've gone for the Hammer and DWZ anytime, $3.40.
Take that. Nice little return. I think DWZ certainly wants to get on the score sheet.
He needs to unleash.
He does. And then on to the Queens. Oh, I hate thinking about Manly. The Queensland Country Bank Stadium. We're going the $1.65 North Queensland Cowboys against the $2.26 Manly Sea Eagles.
I'm not talking too much about this. It's Manly. I'm not very happy with it. And as I've always said, I will never not back my team. But one of the interesting things to see is that Joey Walsh has been brought into the reserves.
Yes.
After making his New South Wales Cup debut last week, I believe. And this leads me to possibly start some sort of speculation of, are they thinking of releasing DCE early and bringing Walsh in?
Well, the Roosters have released, obviously, Brandon Smith early.
And they're trying to get rid of Dom Young.
Trying to get rid of Dom Young. So are they freeing up that salary cap space to make a move before the end of June the 30th? I'm not sure.
I just think it was quite a shock inclusion, if I'm being honest. If they're not thinking of bringing him up into first grade any time soon, why bring him into the reserves? But friend of the pod, Matt Lodge, is back in the reserves. We were saying the game was screaming out for someone like Lodge on
rejuvenated
on
energy, just to run in, rip in, and go mental.
Yeah, I can't wait to see him on the field. But yeah, I'm not very happy with this selection, but I'm going to go for the Manly Sea Eagles.
I originally was going to tip the Cowboys because I believe the Cowboys have got a lot of weapons to their game. But I don't know. I've got a feeling that we're going to turn it around. We're going to go up there and we're going to win a sweaty one. I reckon the Manly Sea Eagles are going to get this done. We're going to get it done away. Going to get it done away from home. And I've gone turbo to score.
Yep.
You got to remember, Origin audition. Teams are being named after. I know he might not have done enough before, but he wants to put in a good performance.
Mm-hmm.
Manly to win under 50.5 points, $7.50. Get amongst that one. Then on to the final game on the Saturday. This could be a barnstormer. Yeah. We've got the $2.31 Cronulla Sharks against the $1.62 Melbourne Storm. This is down at Shark Park. Who are you going with?
The thought process through this game for this one is mad. Like, the Sharks didn't impress me at all against Man, and they haven't impressed me for the last couple of games. And the Storm have been unreal. But then every time I've gone, Storm, 30 plus points, going to be incredible. They've absolutely shut the bed. In saying that, I think the Storm are going to be absolutely unreal and gonna put it on the Sharks, because the Sharks team at the weekend came up against a very one-dimensional attack,
bang average.
Whereas the Storm have got so much creativity, and when Pappenhausen gets going, like when Jerome Hughes gets going, come on, man.
Cam Munster has been named. Is it? Hang on, I could be getting that one. Who was out? No, sorry, Harry Grant. Yeah, Cam Munster's always been playing. What an idiot!
Harry Grant. No,
he's been named in the extended bench or the reserves. Yeah. So it'd be interesting to see whether he gets promoted or not, or whether it's just 1 week too early. So you're going for the Melbourne Storm in this one.
Yes.
I'm going to take your logic, saying that the Melbourne Storm have a mess up in them, and I'm going to tip the Cronulla Sharks. Point of difference between the two of us, but I think down at Shark Park, KO Hero is doing well. They've got Stone Street. They've lost Hazleton though, so when he went down with that shoulder injury, he's actually out this week. I'm going to go for the Cronulla Sharks. But what's your best bet for this game?
I've gone. I did have it. Here we go. I've gone for Coates, Pappenhausen, Stone Street, and Mulitalo all to score. $12.25.
That's not bad.
No, it's a nice little cheeky one.
Nice little one to line the pocket.
And then just to go off what I said, Sharks are 3-1 at home at the moment, and the Storm are 1-2 away.
So there we go. That'll be a decisive one for the tips this week. We'll see how it goes. But on to Sunday, the 2 p.m. kickoff. We got the $1.30 Brisbane Broncos up against the $3.55 St. George Illawarra Dragons.
Broncos for this one. Again, which team's going to turn up? Like it's so frustrating.
They've lost Ben Hunt, hamstring, out for a while. Means Ezra Mam has been named. It will be interesting to see how he gets received.
It's at the Suncorp as well. He's going to have to put in a shift and a half in,
Yeah.
And I think they've got the battle over the halves even with Ezra Mam. And that forward pack is just ridiculous compared to the Dragons. So I'm gonna go for the Broncos on this.
Yeah, I believe the Broncos put in a better performance than they did last week. I'm going to go for the Broncos in this one. And my bet is going to reflect that as well. I'm going to go Broncos 13+, but just to add a bit of spice to it, Dragons to score first in the second half.
Ooh, spicy.
$6.75. So a nice one to keep the game interesting as well, as the Broncos are potentially running away with it in the first half. But on to the 4:05 p.m. game, we got the $1.32 Canberra Raiders, the Matty Nicholson-less Canberra Raiders against the $3.44 Gold Coast Titans.
I've just got the form guide up actually, and it's Raiders are 4-1 at home, Titans are 2-3 away. Not that that was ever going to deter from who I was going to select, but I'm gonna go for the Raiders on this one. They've got to bounce back from last week. The Titans were all over the place against a Knights team that could only play for 40 minutes. The Raiders can turn on for 80, so I reckon this could be a big scoring one for the Raiders.
I think they're going to learn their lesson off of last week as well and make sure they put in a performance longer than 40 minutes. I believe they beat the Titans quite comfortably, so I'm going to join you in tipping the Raiders on this one. Where are you going to put the cash?
I've gone for Hudson Young, Ethan Strange, Raiders 13+ and Fogarty 8+ at $10.25.
Nice. That's another one that could bring in some coin. On to the final game of the weekend. This one is at This one is at Campbelltown Sports Stadium. This one, the odds on it are very interesting. We've got the 10th place West Tigers at $1.92 against the 11th place South Sydney Rabbitohs at $1.92.
Okay.
Where is your cash at?
Ooh. Is it Campbelltown where the Tigers don't do very well?
They weren't meant to have done very well, and then they've done all right there recently, so...
I am really struggling. This one's really difficult.
It's really difficult. Alex Johnson's back for the Rabbitohs after that injury he got against Penrith.
I'm gonna go for the Bunnies on this one. I don't know what it is. The origin side of it coming up. I just think they may grit it out again.
A nice gritty win for the South Sydney Rabbitohs. I'll go and cause a bit of controversy on this. It can go either way. I think this is a toss of a coin. I'm going to go with the West Tigers. They'll want to bounce back from the 64-0 drubbing against the Storm. And what better way to do that than beat a team that's a similar record with you on the ladder. And then to reflect that, I'm going to go with the Tigers. Keep it nice and simple. Tigers 1-12, playing $3.05. So... Nice. There are tips for the week. Few best bets in there as well. But let us know how you get on with those. Then this round's fixtures, we've got the Women's Game 2 State of Origin being played in Sydney at the Allianz. The New South Wales women are 1-0 up in the series, won it up in Queensland, and now they're coming down to New South Wales. How do you reckon this one's going to go?
If New South Wales play half the way they did against them up north, they're going to run away with it. So I can't see anything outside of a women's a New South Wales women's win. Jessie Southwell was incredible, as I said previously, and the two centres, Surges and Kelly, were like absolute hammers in midfield. So I'm going to go for New South Wales.
Yeah, it's interesting to think back to last year on this one where New South Wales, you mentioned it last time, took a 1-0 lead in similar vein, and then they came down and played in Newcastle, I believe, and they won, and the Maroon of Queensland won game 2, and then they went on to win the series 2-1. I don't think it'll be a repeat of that if New South Wales turn up like they did at home at a stadium that is incredible as well, and I'm assuming it will be packed out. Yep. Everyone will be behind the girls, the New South Wales girls. I think this has got 2-0 written all over it, and I'm hoping it's going to be a 3-0 series whitewash. But Great link from the women's origin to the men's origin. Selections taking place this weekend after the Sunday fixtures are complete. What we're going to do is we're going to go through each of our teams. Now, we're going to select people that we want to see picked, that we'd like to see picked, not necessarily who are going to be picked. Obviously, we hope there's going to be some similarities between the teams that we see and the teams that are actually going to be pulled out. But there's some things that, as people that haven't watched the game for a long period of time and don't necessarily understand, like, what an origin player is, what the historical origin players are, but we're of the same belief that you should be picked on form, not necessarily on previous.
Yeah, and I know there's been a lot made around the element of, last year's team won Origin, so they should just stick with that. Granted, but there's been a year since that's happened. Players have changed teams. Things aren't going as well for them this year.
Yeah.
Like, just because they've won one series doesn't necessarily mean they're going to go and do it again.
Yeah.
And that's why, again, we've had the discussion. I think it's a big thing to pick players on form as well.
Yeah. Shall I go with mine first and then you go through your team?
Go for it.
So, interesting one for me. I've gone for James Tedesco at fullback. I don't think Dylan Edwards has performed like he did last year in the lead up to Origin. Pappenhausen's made a late shout, but I don't think he's quite game one ready. James Tedesco's been there, done that, captain the side. I think he should get the fullback spot. In the centres, I've gone for the Origin man himself that we spoke about earlier, Latrell Mitchell, and who I believe is going to be the Origin captain in Stephen Crichton. Them two devastating in the centres. My wing choices are quite interesting, actually. There's been talk of this guy, Jacob Carraz, being selected for Origin, but he's overshadowed by the likes of Brian Toto because of previous. I believe Crichton and Carraz, what they've done at the Bulldogs, can make a significant impact for New South Wales on the right edge. And then the other wing, I've gone with Josh Adokar. The guy can just finish and he's got pace to burn. I love him. I would have picked Lomax, but I believe he's been out for too long. You watch, he'll go this weekend and score probably like 5 tries or something like that. And then my halves partnership, I've gone with Luai at 6 and Cleary at 7 because they've been there, done that together. Luai is a leader, Cleary's a leader, and he's the only one in Penrith that's kind of really stood out, I feel, in recent weeks. Hooker, do you know what? Wasn't really sure as to the difference between Reece Robson, who I've gone for at hooker, and Connor Watson. They could be interchangeable. So I've gone Reece Robson starting hooker and then Connor Watson as a utility player on the bench. My props are Payne Haas and Mitch Barnett. I just think they're two powerhouses. Second row, I would love to see Huddy Young start in there. And I do love Angus Crichton. So those two are my second row. And then at lock, I mentioned earlier, Isaiah Yao. On the bench, Connor Watson, like I mentioned, Spencer Leniu, Liam Martin, because he is a dog, but I just don't think he's quite reached the form of last year. And then Terrell May to make his Origin debut. That means no Jake Trbojevic in there, no Ola Kawatu, no Tom Trbojevic. No. I think those boys, not just because we're Manly fans and want them to have a rest and be at full speed, full tilt during Origin, I just don't think they perform well enough to be there. Who have you gone with?
So I've gone for a couple of not outsiders, but I've sort of stacked on a couple of positions just because there's players I believe that should be in there from what I'm saying. So first of all, I've got Ryan Pappenhausen at fullback. I think you can't ignore what he's doing. Tedesco and Edwards have been nowhere near his level, and you've got to feel really sorry for Pappenhausen if he's completely overlooked. Granted, you've got to blood them in at some point. And what's easier, game 1 or game 2? So if they go on and lose this and bring him in game 2, and he's
even more pressure.
Whereas game 1, you've then got 2 games to try and bag it up. Very similar with yourself. I've got Adokar at one wing. I've got Lomax or Tahoe on the other. I think just because of previous, they'll be doing that, and they're absolutely incredible when they get going. My centres were the exact same as yours. Mitchell and Crichton, they are dogs of the highest order.
That's what you need up against the...
Yeah, and Mitchell was a different animal when he came in game 2. It was incredible to watch last year. And Stephen Crichton I've got down as my captain as well. At 6, I've got Jerome Luai, just because absolute dog, brilliant player. But then I've also gone for a little bit of I don't know whether it's an outsider one, but I've gone for Ethan Strange.
Putting real good performances in, and you can't argue where the Raiders are in the table either.
And just because he does everything, he's been incredible in attack. He's done incredible stuff in defensive work as well. He's been shifting a game, and again, there's going to be a point where these players are going to have to start coming through. 7 Cleary, I think that's accept. Apart from the fact that when we went to Penrith, I had a very in-depth conversation with one of our friends saying I've never seen Cleary do it at Origin with a very few.
Let's hope this is the year.
But yeah, him there. Hassan Barnett at props. I've gone Connor Watson to start at hooker.
Yeah.
Hudson Young and Liam Martin.
Yeah.
I think Liam Martin is a little bit ahead of Angus Crichton because the work he puts in on sort of kicks
true.
and things like that. He's always downfield. He's an absolute workhorse.
Another thing that led me towards Crichton though is how high he wears his shorts. So
for a bit of drip, on
exactly.
there. Yeah. I think there's only one good 13 at the moment in it as a Yao.
Yeah.
On the bench, so that utility person, I've either gone Robson as yourself, or I've gone Tom Starling.
You can't ignore what the Raiders are doing, and this guy hits everything that moves as well.
And that's the thing, and he's so pinnacle in their attack. And if you brought Starling on second phase of an Origin game, tiring pack, Queensland pack, he would start opening things up. But the three of them are so similar in what they do.
Yeah,
it's very difficult to be doing that. And then very similar in the sense I've got Spencer Leniu, Terrell May, and then I've got Angus Crichton as well as my other bench.
Yeah, we got similarities. You've included the odd Canberra Raider in there, which maybe it's reflecting the fact that I tipped them to be the wooden spoon contenders at the start of the season. Can't argue what they've done. But we've got a lot to look forward to this weekend. We've got the Women's Origin on Thursday. We've got the NRL round 11. And then we've got the selections coming out on Sunday. I can't remember. Do one team release them at 3 o'clock and one team release them later in the day? Or do they one on Sunday, one on Monday?
I don't know. I can't remember.
I'm not too sure. But that's the end of another episode. Give us a like. Give us a subscribe. Comment down below on some of your thoughts and opinions on our Origin choices. And thank you for listening this weekend. And catch you in the next one.
Good night. God bless.